The smoke still rose from the burning buildings of New Seoul Colony. Commander Jin Seo-hyun walked through the destroyed streets with her boots crunching on broken glass. The battle had ended 2 days ago. The humans were beaten. Their ships were destroyed. Their soldiers were dead or captured. But something felt wrong. Jin stopped in front of a damaged school building. The walls were black from fire. The playground was full of holes from plasma rounds. She had seen many worlds fall to the Vorthak Empire. This should feel the same. Victory should taste sweet. Instead, it tasted like ash in her mouth. "Commander," called Lieutenant Vex, 7 from behind her. His purple skin was marked with battle scars. "The prisoners are ready for questioning." Jin nodded and followed him to the detention center. The Vorthak had built it quickly, from metal sheets and force fields. Inside, 30 human prisoners sat on the floor. Their clothes were dirty and torn. Some had bandages on their wounds. But none of them looked defeated. Jin studied their faces. She had seen broken people before. These humans were not broken. They sat quietly, but their eyes were alert. Some even smiled when they looked at her. That was not normal. "Bring me the scientist," Jin ordered. 2 guards dragged a middle-aged human man to a chair in front of her. His name was Dr. Park Min-jun, according to his file. He had worked at the colony's research station. His hair was gray, and his glasses were cracked, but he sat straight and calm. "Dr. Park," Jin said in her best human language, "your colony is destroyed. Your people are dead or captured. Why do you not seem sad?" Park looked up at her with dark eyes. A small smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Should I be sad, Commander?" "Yes. You should be broken. You should beg for mercy. That is what defeated people do. Perhaps we are not as defeated as you think." Jin felt a chill run down her spine. "Your military is gone. Your ships are wreckage. Your weapons are captured. What more defeat could there be?" Park's smile grew wider. "You think this was our military? You think this was our real fight?" He laughed softly. "Commander, this was just the opening move. You speak nonsense. We scanned this system completely. There are no human fleets hiding anywhere." "No," Park agreed. "There are no fleets hiding. But there are other things." Jin leaned forward. "What other things?" "The real question," Park said, "is whether you understand what you have really done here. You attacked a human colony. You killed human families. You destroyed human homes." Park said, "Yes. That is conquest. That is victory." "No, Commander. That is a mistake." The lights in the detention center flickered. Jin looked up at the ceiling, then back at Park. "What kind of mistake?" "The kind that makes humans very angry," Park said quietly. "And when humans get angry, we do not surrender. We plan. 1. 1. 1. Outside, a rumbling sound echoed across the colony. Jin turned toward the windows. The sky looked normal, blue with white clouds. But something in that rumbling made her skin crawl. "What was that?" Lieutenant Vex 7 asked. "Probably aftershocks from the bombardment," Jin replied. But she did not believe it herself. Park was still smiling. "Tell me, Commander, do you have children?" "That is not your concern. I had a daughter. She was 7 years old. She loved to draw pictures of flowers." Park's voice stayed calm, but his eyes grew hard. "Your soldiers killed her in the school bombing. Jin felt uncomfortable. Killing civilians was part of war, but she never liked to think about the details. "War has casualties." "Yes, it does," Park agreed. "And now, war will have more casualties. Many more." The rumbling came again, louder this time. Through the window, Jin could see other Vorthak soldiers looking up at the sky. Some were pointing at something. "Dr. Park," Jin said slowly, "what do you know that I do not know? I know that humans never put all their eggs in one basket. I know that we always have backup plans. And I know that the real human military is not ground forces or ships. Then what is it? Determination, Park said simply. And we are very determined to make sure what happened to my daughter never happens to anyone else's child. The detention center's communication system crackled to life. All units. Report to stations immediately. Unknown energy readings detected in upper atmosphere. Repeat. Unknown energy readings in upper atmosphere. Jin stood up quickly. Lieutenant, watch the prisoners. She ran outside and grabbed her scanner from her belt. The readings were strange. High energy, but not from any weapon she knew. The patterns looked almost like entry signatures. But that was impossible. There were no human ships in this system. Commander, Sergeant Kex-2 called from across the street. Look at the sky. Jin tilted her head back and stared upward. High above, barely visible, were thin white lines cutting across the blue, like scratches on glass, like the sky was tearing. What are those? She whispered. Behind her, from inside the detention center, she could hear Dr. Park laughing. Not cruel laughter. Not mad laughter. The kind of laughter that comes from knowing something others do not know. The kind of laughter that comes from knowing help is coming. Jin's communication device buzzed. General Krell 9's voice crackled through the speaker. All commanders report energy readings. Are these natural phenomena? Jin looked at the growing lines in the sky. They were getting brighter, getting bigger. General, I do not think these are natural. Explain. I think, Jin said slowly, the humans had a backup plan. The lines in the sky began to glow orange, then red, then white-hot. The rumbling sound grew into a roar that shook the ground under their feet. And Dr. Park's laughter grew louder. General, Jin said into her communicator, I think we may have made a very big mistake. Above them, the sky began to crack open like an egg, and something was trying to get out. The sky exploded. That was the only way Commander Jin So-hyun could describe it. One moment she was staring at strange white lines above the colony. The next moment, those lines tore apart like ripping cloth. Behind them was not blue sky or black space. Behind them was fire. And through that fire came rain. But it was not water falling from the torn sky. Metal pods dropped through the burning atmosphere like angry meteors. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Each one trailing smoke and flame as it screamed toward the ground. All units, defensive positions! Jin shouted into her communicator. Around her, Vorthak's soldiers scattered for cover. Their purple skin had gone pale with fear. The first pod hit the ground 300 meters away. The impact shook the earth and sent dust flying everywhere. Before the dust could settle, the pod split open with a sharp crack. Something moved inside. Jin raised her plasma rifle and aimed at the smoking crater. Come out slowly with your hands visible. A figure stood up in the wreckage. Human. Female. Wearing black armor that seemed to absorb light. She carried a weapon Jin had never seen before. It looked like it could tear through Vorthak battle armor like paper. The human woman looked directly at Jin. Even at this distance, Jin could see her cold smile. Target acquired, the human said in a voice that carried across the battlefield. Beginning urban pacification. More pods crashed around the colony. Each impact brought more armored humans. They moved with purpose and speed that made Jin's soldiers look clumsy. Within minutes, the sounds of battle erupted from every direction. But this was not the confused fighting of desperate people. This was organized, professional, deadly. Jin spoke into her communicator. General, Krell 9, we need immediate reinforcements. The humans are landing assault troops. Impossible, came the reply. Our sensors show no human ships in this system. Then where did these troops come from? A plasma bolt sizzled past Jin's head. She dove behind a concrete barrier and returned fire. The human soldier who had shot at her was already gone. Moved to a new position. Jin had fought many enemies across the galaxy. None of them moved like this. Commander. Lieutenant Vex 7 crawled up beside her. His armor was scorched from near misses. The detention center is under attack. The prisoners have somehow armed themselves. That is impossible. We searched them completely. Tell that to Sergeant Kex 2. He is dead. Shot with a weapon that came from nowhere. Jin cursed in her native language. How many prisoners escaped? All of them. Led by that scientist, Park Min-jun. Through the smoke and dust, Jin saw a group of figures running between buildings. The human colonists, who had seemed so helpless, were now carrying weapons and moving like trained soldiers. Dr. Park was with them, no longer the quiet scientist but someone giving orders that others followed without question. This was planned, Jin realized. All of it. The easy conquest. The quick surrender. It was all a trap. Another wave of pods crashed down. These ones landed closer to the Vorthak command center. Jin watched in horror as her comrades tried to fight the emerging humans. Vorthak plasma weapons were designed to punch through thick armor, but the humans did not rely on armor. They relied on speed and cunning. One human soldier rolled between 3 Vorthak warriors, firing some kind of projectile weapon. The bullets seemed to know where to hit. Each shot found the weak spots in Vorthak armor that should have been impossible to target. How do they know our weaknesses? Jin whispered. Because we studied you, said a voice behind her. Jin spun around to find Dr. Park Min-jun standing 10 meters away. He held a rifle that hummed with energy. But he was not pointing it at her. Dr. Park, you should be in custody. Should I? According to who? Park smiled that same calm smile. Commander, did you really think a species that travels between stars would keep all their military on one small colony world? Where did those troops come from? Orbital platforms, hidden in the asteroid belt. We have been watching you for months, learning how you fight, how you think, how you make war. Park stepped closer. Every battle you won against us taught us something new about you. Jin kept her weapon aimed at him. You let us win to study us. Some battles must be lost to win the war, Park said simply. My daughter died so that other children might live. The people of this colony died so that humanity could learn what we needed to know. That is madness. That is sacrifice, something your empire does not understand. A new sound filled the air. Jin looked up to see sleek aircraft diving through the torn sky. But these were not Vorthak ships. They moved wrong, turned too quickly, flew in patterns that defied proper military doctrine. Human reinforcements, Park explained. Captain Lee Da-eun and her drop battalion, some of our best soldiers. One of the aircraft landed near them with impossible grace. The side door slid open, and a woman in command armor stepped out. She was young for a human officer, but her eyes held the kind of hardness that came from seeing too much war. Dr. Park. Status report. Captain Lee, the Vorthak forces are scattered and confused. Phase 1 is complete. Captain Lee Da-eun nodded and looked at Jin. Vorthak Commander, you are now a prisoner of the Human Colonial Defense Force. This colony had no defense force, Jin protested. We destroyed them all. No, Lee said patiently. You destroyed our colonial militia. Local farmers and shopkeepers playing soldier to make you think you had won. She gestured at the ongoing battle around them. This is our real military. Jin watched as human soldiers moved through her scattered forces like a storm. They fought with coordination that seemed impossible. Every move supported every other move. When one human fell back, another took their place. When they advanced, they did it together. And they were winning. This is not how war works, Jin said desperately. You do not sacrifice entire colonies as bait. We do when the survival of our species depends on it, Dr. Park replied. You made one critical mistake, Commander. What mistake? Park's eyes grew cold as winter. You killed our children. And when you kill human children, we stop fighting like civilized people. Captain Lee activated her communicator. All units. Phase 2 is authorized. Show them what human mercy looks like when it runs out. Around the colony, the sounds of battle changed. The organized fighting became something else. Something that made Jin's blood freeze. Something that sounded like vengeance. Sergeant Kim Tae-min crouched behind the wreckage of a Vorthok transport and checked his ammunition. 3 clips left. Enough to finish this sector and move to the next target. Around him, the sounds of urban combat echoed between the broken buildings of New Seoul Colony. But this was not the random violence of desperate people fighting hopeless odds. This was precise, calculated. Every shot had a purpose. Ghost Squad, report, he whispered into his throat microphone. Ghost 2. North sector clear. 17 enemy down. 0 friendly casualties. Ghost 3, East sector secured. Found their ammunition depot. Redistributing supplies to colonist fighters. Kim smiled grimly. The Vorthak had made their first mistake by thinking humans fought like other species. Their second mistake was thinking human colonists were helpless civilians. Every person on New Seoul Colony had basic military training. Farmers who could field strip a rifle blindfolded. Teachers who knew how to set explosive charges. Children who had practiced hiding and moving without sound since they could walk. The Vorthak had conquered a world full of soldiers pretending to be farmers. Ghost Leader, came Captain Lee's voice through the comm system. What is your status? Sector 7 is clean, Captain. Moving to support Ghost 4 at the command bunker. Negative. New orders. We have intelligence that Vorthok reinforcements are landing at the spaceport. Your squad will intercept and delay. Kim looked through his scope toward the spaceport. 3 large Vorthak ships were settling onto the landing pads. Troop transports. Maybe 200 soldiers total. Against his squad of 8 humans. The odds were almost fair. Ghost Squad. New target. Spaceport interdiction. Standard harassment protocol. Copy, Ghost Leader. Time to teach them about human hospitality. Kim led his squad through the ruins toward the spaceport. They moved like shadows, using every piece of cover, every broken wall, every shell crater. The Vorthak reinforcements were forming up in parade formation on the open landing field. Another mistake. Humans did not fight in neat lines. They fought like water finding cracks in stone, flowing around strong points, striking where the enemy was weakest, disappearing before counterattacks could form. Ghost 2, take the North Tower. Overwatch position. Ghost 3, south flank. Cut off their retreat to the ships. Ghost 4, with me. We go straight through the middle. Kim's soldiers melted away into the shadows. Within minutes, they were in position around the spaceport. The Vorthak reinforcements were still organizing themselves, their purple-skinned commanders shouting orders in their guttural language. They had no idea death was watching them from every direction. Kim activated his scope's targeting system. The smart bullets in his rifle would find their own way to the target once fired. But first, he wanted to see if the Vorthak would make this easy. They did. The enemy commander stood on top of his transport, pointing at a map and giving orders to his subordinates. A perfect target, silhouetted against the bright sky. Kim pulled the trigger. The bullet streaked across the landing field and took the commander's head off his shoulders. The Vorthok reinforcements scattered like insects when someone lifted a rock. But they scattered in panic, not in any organized pattern. Kim's squad began picking them off methodically. The beauty of human tactics was their flexibility. When Vorthak forces tried to charge Ghost 2's position, Ghost 3 hit them from the side. When they regrouped to assault Ghost 3, Kim and Ghost 4 struck from behind. Always moving. Always adapting. Never where the enemy expected them to be. Ghost Leader. This is Ghost 2. I count 40 enemy down, maybe 60 still active. They are trying to reach their ships. Negative. Let them reach the ships, then disable the engines. Trap them on the ground. Kim switched to armor-piercing rounds and put 3 shots into each transport's engine compartment. The Vorthak ships began leaking fuel and sparking with electrical failures. Now the enemy was trapped on a hostile world, with no way to escape. Exactly where Kim wanted them. Ghost Squad, Phase 3. Make them sorry they came here. For the next hour, Kim's 8 soldiers turned the spaceport into a maze of death. The Vorthak reinforcements tried to form defensive positions, but every position had a weakness. They tried to coordinate attacks, but their communications were jammed by colonist hackers. Most importantly, they tried to fight like their training taught them. Disciplined. Organized. Predictable. Humans fought like humans. Chaotic. Adaptive. Unpredictable. When the Vorthak took cover behind their landed ships, Ghost Squad attacked from the underground maintenance tunnels. When they tried to establish fields of fire, the humans used smoke grenades and flashbang weapons to turn the battlefield into confusion. And through it all, Kim's squad talked to each other in the casual way of people who had trained together for years. Ghost 2, you missed that shot. Did not miss. I was aiming for his weapon, not his head. Sure you were. Ghost 3, you have 2 targets moving toward your position. I see them. Wanna bet I can get both with 1 shot? You are showing off again. The Vorthak must have been listening to the human chatter. They probably expected fear or desperate determination. Instead, they heard soldiers who sounded like they were enjoying themselves. That was the most frightening thing of all. Ghost Leader, Captain Lee's voice crackled through the comm. How are you handling 200 enemies with 8 soldiers? We are not fighting 200 enemies, Captain, Kim replied while reloading his rifle. We are fighting 200 individuals who happen to be in the same place. They fight like a machine. Machines break when you hit the right components. And humans? Kim looked around the spaceport. Bodies in purple armor were scattered across the landing field. The few survivors had barricaded themselves inside one of the damaged transports. They were no longer trying to attack. They were just trying to stay alive. Humans fight like a living thing. Living things adapt. Understood. Finish up there and report to the command bunker. We have a new problem. What kind of problem? The kind where the Vorthak orbital fleet is preparing to bombard their own forces. Kim felt a chill run through him. He had seen desperate enemies before, but never ones willing to kill their own soldiers just to eliminate human fighters. Captain, how long do we have? Unknown. But Dr. Park thinks we can turn this to our advantage. Kim smiled despite the situation. If the old scientist had a plan, it was probably insane. And if it was insane, it would probably work. After all, insane plans were what humans did best. Ghost Squad, wrap it up. We have bigger fish to catch. Copy, Ghost Leader. Should we leave any of them alive? Kim looked at the transport where the last Vorthak soldiers were hiding. These were the ones who had come to finish destroying the colony. To kill more children. To wipe out more families. His smile disappeared. Negative, Ghost 3. No survivors. Send a message to the fleet above us. What message? That humans remember everything. And we never forgive those who hurt our children. General Krell 9 stared at the tactical display aboard his flagship with growing horror. The hologram showed New Sol Colony painted in red warning indicators. Every Vorthak position was either destroyed or under heavy attack. His ground forces were being systematically eliminated by what should have been a beaten enemy. This is impossible, he growled to his aide. How many human troops landed in those pods? Estimates range from 800 to 1,000, General. And how many of our soldiers were on the surface? 3,000. Plus the 200 reinforcements we just sent. Krell 9's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the readouts. 3,000 trained Vorthak warriors cannot defeat 1,000 humans who fell from the sky in metal cans? It appears not, General. The communication board lit up with urgent signals from the surface. Krell 9 activated the first one. Commander Jin So-hyun's voice crackled through the speakers, but she sounded different. Uncertain. Almost frightened. General, I am requesting immediate orbital support. The humans are not fighting according to any military doctrine we understand. Explain. They move like they know exactly where we are at all times. They coordinate attacks without using radio communications we can intercept. And, General, Jin's voice dropped to a whisper, I think some of our soldiers are switching sides. That is impossible. Vorthok warriors do not betray the Empire. I am watching it happen, General. Commander Jin So-hyun is fighting alongside the humans. She is using her knowledge of our systems to help them. Krell 9 felt his blood pressure spike. You are Jin So-hyun. No, General. I was Jin So-hyun. Now I am someone who has seen what we really are. The transmission cut off. Krell 9 stood frozen for a moment, trying to process what he had just heard. One of his most trusted commanders had defected to the enemy. But why? General, his weapons officer called out. We are detecting energy signatures from the human drop pods. They are not just troop transports. What else are they? Some kind of mobile weapons platform. They are launching projectiles at our ships. The main display shifted to show the orbital space around the planet. Dozens of small objects were rising from the surface, trailing fire as they climbed toward the Vorthak fleet. They moved too fast to be conventional rockets. Defensive systems, target those projectiles. Krell 9 ordered. Sir, they are too small and too fast. Our weapons cannot track them effectively. The first projectile struck the cruiser, Domination. The ship shuddered, but remained operational. Then, more projectiles arrived. Not enough to destroy the big ships, but enough to damage them. To make the Vorthak fleet vulnerable. This is a coordinated attack, Krell 9 realized. The ground assault was designed to capture our weapons and turn them against us. His aide approached hesitantly. General, we are receiving communications from other Vorthak fleets across human space. Similar attacks are happening on 17 different worlds. What? Krell 9 spun around. That is impossible. Intelligence reported that humans had no military forces left. It appears intelligence was wrong. The reports indicate that every human colony we conquered in the last 6 months was a trap. They let us win so they could study our tactics. Krell 9 felt the deck shudder under his feet as another projectile found its mark. Through the bridge windows, he could see fires burning on several ships in his fleet. Below them, the planet's surface sparkled with the flashes of ongoing combat. Sir, the communications officer called out, we have an incoming transmission from the surface, human origin. Put it through. The main screen flickered and showed a human woman in black armor. She stood in what looked like a Vorthak command center. But the bodies around her were all purple-skinned. Behind her, Krell 9 could see human and Vorthak soldiers working together to operate captured equipment. General Krell 9, the woman said, I am Captain Lee Da-un, of the Human Colonial Defense Force. I think it is time we talked. You are in no position to make demands, human. Actually, I think I am. Lee gestured behind her. We control your ground forces. We have captured your equipment. And we are using your own weapons against your fleet. But more importantly, we have something you need to know. And what is that? This was never about conquering one small colony. This was about showing the galaxy what happens when someone attacks human civilians. Dr. Park Min-jun stepped into view beside Captain Lee. General, do you know how many children died in your attack on this colony? Casualties of war are irrelevant. 437 children, Park continued, as if Krell 9 had not spoken. I counted everyone. I recorded their names. I have pictures of their faces. I counted. Your point? My point is that humanity now knows exactly what your empire is willing to do to win wars. And we have decided to show the galaxy what we are willing to do to stop you. The display shifted to show tactical readouts from across Vorthak space. Green indicators marked human fleet movements. There were far more than should have been possible. You are looking at the real human military, Lee explained. The fleets you never found, because we never let you see them. The soldiers you never fought, because they were waiting for the right moment. Krell 9 studied the display with growing alarm. Human ships were emerging from hidden bases throughout the sector. Not the small defensive fleets he expected, but massive battle groups that had somehow remained undetected. Where did these forces come from? We built them while you were busy conquering empty worlds and killing farmers, Dr. Park said. Every colony you destroyed, every civilian you murdered, every child you killed, just made us work harder. This is madness. You sacrificed entire worlds just to set a trap. We sacrificed some worlds to save all worlds, Lee corrected. And now the trap is closing. The weapons officer called out urgently. General, multiple human fleets are jumping into the system. We are outnumbered, 5-1. Through the bridge windows, Krell 9 could see the bright flashes of ships dropping out of hyperspace. Human ships, but not like any designs in their intelligence files. These were new, advanced, built specifically to fight Vorthak forces. Captain Lee, Krell 9 said carefully, what are your terms? Terms? Lee looked surprised. General, I think you misunderstand the situation. This is not a negotiation. This is a demonstration. A demonstration of what? Of what happens when you make humans angry. Lee's expression hardened. You wanted to see human mercy? You saw it when we offered your soldiers chances to surrender. You wanted to see human determination? You are seeing it now. And what comes next? Dr. Park stepped forward again. Next, General, you learn the difference between conquest and justice. Your empire will face the consequences of every atrocity it has committed. The communication ended. Krell 9 stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by damage reports and tactical displays that showed his doom approaching from every direction. For the first time in his military career, he understood what it meant to be afraid. And somewhere below him, in the ruins of New Sol Colony, human soldiers were teaching his forces that there were fates worse than death. There was facing an enemy that never forgot and never forgave. Captain Lee Da-un stood in the captured Vorthak command center and watched the final phase of the battle unfold on the tactical displays. Around her, human and former Vorthak soldiers worked side by side to coordinate the orbital assault. The sight would have seemed impossible a week ago. Now it just seemed right. Captain, Sergeant Kim Tae-min reported from his position at the communications console. The last Vorthak ground forces have surrendered. Total enemy casualties, 2,800. Our casualties, 43 wounded, 12 dead. Lee nodded grimly. 12 good people who would never see their families again. But their sacrifice had saved thousands of others across human space. And the orbital fleet? General Krell 9 is requesting permission to negotiate surrender terms. Through the command center's windows, Lee could see the Vorthak ships burning in orbit above them. The human fleets that had emerged from hidden bases were methodically dismantling what remained of the enemy armada. It was not a battle anymore. It was an execution. Dr. Park, Lee called to the scientist who was studying captured Vorthak data files. What do our psychological profiles say about General Krell 9? Park looked up from his work. He is a career military officer. Intelligent, but not creative. He follows doctrine, because it has always worked before. When doctrine fails, he becomes confused and makes poor decisions. And what does doctrine tell him to do when facing overwhelming odds? Fight to the death for the glory of the Empire. Lee smiled coldly. Then we will give him a different option, one that appeals to his intelligence rather than his training. She activated the communication system and opened a channel to the Vorthak flagship. General Krell 9 appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes reflecting defeat and confusion. "General," Lee said politely, "I understand you wish to discuss terms. Your forces have us outnumbered and outgunned. I request the traditional military courtesy of honorable surrender." "I am afraid that is not possible." Krell 9's expression hardened. "Then we will fight to the last ship." "No, General. You misunderstand. Honorable surrender is not possible, because what your empire did here was not honorable warfare." Lee gestured toward the windows, where the smoke of burning buildings still rose from the colony below. "You killed 437 children. You murdered civilians who had already surrendered. You destroyed hospitals and schools. Those are the normal costs of conquest. Normal for your species, perhaps, not normal for ours." Dr. Park stepped into view beside Lee. "General, we have been studying your empire's military history. In the last 50 years, you have conquered 18 different species. Do you know what happened to those species? They became productive members of the empire." "No," Park said quietly. "They became extinct. Every single one. Conquered, enslaved, worked to death, and forgotten." Krell 9 said nothing. "That was going to be humanity's fate," Lee continued. "Until you made one critical mistake. You assumed we would react like all the other species you have destroyed. How should you have reacted differently? We should have been afraid. We should have begged for mercy. We should have accepted our fate as conquered people." Lee's voice grew harder. "Instead, we got angry. And when humans get angry, we do not give up. We adapt." The display screens around the command center showed tactical feeds from across Vorthok space. Human fleets were engaging enemy forces on dozens of worlds simultaneously. The attacks were coordinated down to the second, striking at the exact moment when Vorthak defenses would be weakest. "This is impossible," Krell 9 whispered. "No species can coordinate attacks across such distances." "You are right," Dr. Park agreed. "No species we know about could do this. But humans are not like other species. We do not fight as individuals. We do not fight as tribes. We fight as one organism spread across the galaxy." "How?" "Because we remember," Lee said simply. "Every human who dies becomes part of our collective memory. Every atrocity committed against us becomes fuel for our determination. Every child you killed became a reason for 1,000 human soldiers to fight harder." Jin So-hyun, the former Vorthak commander who had joined the human forces, approached the communication console. "General, I have something to tell you." "Jin," Krell 9 said with obvious pain, "why did you betray the Empire?" "Because I learned the difference between strength and cruelty," Jin replied. "The humans showed me what real strength looks like. It is not the ability to kill the weak, it is the willingness to protect them. You have been brainwashed." "No, General, I have been educated." "Do you want to know what the humans did with our soldiers? Who surrendered? They executed them, I assume. They gave them medical treatment. They fed them. They asked them about their families back home." Jin's voice grew soft. "They treated us better than we treated their civilians." Lee stepped forward again. "General, here are our terms. Your fleet will surrender all weapons and withdraw from human space immediately. Your empire will return every human prisoner and provide compensation for the families of those killed. And if we refuse, then we demonstrate the difference between human mercy and human justice." Lee gestured toward the tactical displays. "You are looking at Phase 1 of our response to your attack on New Sol. Would you like to see Phase 2? The screens shifted to show deep space reconnaissance images. Massive human battle fleets were approaching the Vorthok home system, ships that dwarfed anything in the current engagement. Weapons, platforms that could crack planets. Those fleets will reach your homeworld in 72 hours, Dr. Park explained. They carry enough firepower to turn your entire system into debris. You would commit genocide? We would stop you from committing any more genocides, Lee corrected. The choice is yours, General. Accept our terms, and your people live. Refuse, and your empire joins the 18 species you destroyed. Krell 9 stared at the displays for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that would determine the fate of their entire civilization. What guarantee do I have that you will honor these terms? The same guarantee you gave the civilians of New Sol, Lee said coldly. None. You will have to trust that we are more honorable than you are. Another long silence. I accept your terms, Krell 9 said finally. Wise choice. Lee nodded to Kim Tae-min, who began transmitting surrender protocols to the Vorthak fleet. General, there is one more thing you should know. What? This engagement will be studied in every human military academy for the next 1,000 years. Not as an example of how to win battles, but as an example of what happens when someone threatens human children. Dr. Park stepped forward one last time. General, when you return to your homeworld, I want you to remember something. My daughter's name was Park So-young. She was 7 years old. She loved to draw flowers. Why should I remember this? Because every time your empire considers attacking another innocent world, I want you to think about her. I want you to remember that somewhere in human space, her father is still alive, still watching, still remembering, and still very, very angry, Lee added. The communication ended. Around the command center, human soldiers began the process of accepting Vorthak's surrender and organizing the transfer of prisoners. But Lee remained at the windows, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were watching this battle, learning that humans could be pushed only so far before they pushed back, learning that mercy had limits, and that some lines, once crossed, could never be uncrossed. Kim Tae-min approached her. Captain, what are your orders for the occupation forces? No occupation, Lee replied. We take what intelligence we need, help our new Vorthak allies, establish a better government, and leave. Allies? Jin Seo-hyun and her followers have proven that not all Vorthak support their empire's methods. They will help us build something better. Lee turned away from the windows and walked toward the door. Sergeant, send a message to all human colonies. What message? Tell them they can sleep safely tonight. The monsters that came for their children have learned that humans make very poor victims. As Lee left the command center, she passed a group of human children who had emerged from their hiding places. They were drawing pictures with salvaged art supplies, pictures of flowers, just like Park So-young used to draw. The war was over, but the memory would last forever, and that was exactly how humans wanted it.